With March break coming up, there are thousands of excited people getting ready to come to airports like this one to go on holiday. But what if your travel plans change at the last moment and one passenger can't go? Why can't somebody else go in that person's stead? Well, this recently happened to my husband and me. We were planning a trip to Cuba, and about a week before, something came up for him and he couldn't go. So I wanted his mother to come instead. And I was told that it was absolutely impossible. I thought that seemed like an unreasonable rule, and I spoke to a travel advocate about it today, and he agrees it's ridiculous.
I see no justification for insisting that you cannot change the name. I could see a justification for a nominal fee for a name change because the airline has to have someone taking care of the paperwork. $25, $50, it would be reasonable. But just saying outright you cannot change the name, that's entirely and utterly unreasonable.
The rules vary depending on the tour operator or carrier, and the reasons for them also vary depending on who you ask. This expert says it's partly for security reasons.
Airlines are paranoid in terms of air security and safety, so they try to follow the rules the best they can.
They make the rules too, right?
They make their own rules to prevent trouble.
The Travel Industry Council of Ontario, known as TICO, says the rules are not legislated. Each airline and/or tour operator has its own policies with respect to name changes and correcting names when they're misspelled on reservations. The policies are set out in the terms and conditions of the travel services that you purchased.
It would be great if they could be more flexible.
Susan Doherty runs a branch of maritime travel and admits name changes can be tricky. Sometimes companies will allow changes for a fee as long as it's done with plenty of notice. In my case, it was only a week in advance and I was told it would be impossible. But Susan says I may well have had a better outcome if I'd used a travel agent because of their strong relationship with their vendors and suppliers.
It's probably happened a few times a year. I don't think we've ever had an unsuccessful resolution to getting a name change.
In a statement, Air Canada said this is a long-established industry-wide practice, and a big reason for this is to prevent a secondary market for tickets, like scalping. But passenger advocate Gabor Lukacs doesn't buy it.
Once we have eliminated those concerns, which can easily be eliminated, when you are transferring a ticket genuinely to a family member or a friend and not as a form of business, it should not matter whether you are the recipient of the service or your neighbor.
Yes, I wanted to take my mother-in-law. And by the way, I wound up going by myself. It wasn't that fun. Sunwing also sent me a statement late this afternoon saying it's the hotels that insist on this name change policy in order to secure special offers and early booking rates. They consider a cancellation, a name change, a cancellation. Everyone I talked to recommended cancellation insurance, something which I did not purchase. Soon, ticket rules may not be the only thing troubling travelers. Coming up, we hear why a new federal legislation may actually roll back passengers' rights. We've been talking to travel and airline expert Gabor Lukacs about the rules around name changes on vacation packages. But he says there's another big story in the airline industry right now that is being largely ignored. It's about new federal legislation that has passed through the House of Commons and is now before the Senate. Gabor says Bill C-49 is bad legislation for consumers for a number of reasons. One of the big problems with it is that tarmac delays, where travelers are stuck in a plane unable to disembark for whatever reason, are now supposed to be a maximum of 90 minutes. The new law allows airlines to double that to 3 hours. Gabor says that is just not right.
This claws back on existing passenger rights in a completely unreasonable and irrational manner. We already have a Canadian standard. If they want to put a Canadian standard in the law, we support that, and the 90 minutes should be in the law. We are all for it. But doubling the amount of time that passengers can be held captives in aircraft on the tarmac without water, without food, is completely inhumane and unreasonable. It serves only the airline's private interests. It does not serve the public interest.
Now, Gabor says that there are a number of other problems with the legislation, but it's still possible for the Senate to make amendments. He's hoping that his campaign to make changes will have an effect.